Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Sella, in studio with co-host Jay Dash, who is sitting beside me, mocking me at the moment. We're going to talk some fantasy football, some situational starters, some sleepers, some deep sleepers for you 12, 14, 16-team leagues. You're all out of your mind. That's too much work for me.
It is a lot of work, but it's fun, too. I want to do a league where there's 32 teams.
Good Lord. I just picked the Patriots.
Yeah, go ahead. Your running backs will suck.
That's all right. They're going to cheat and they're going to win, so that's all that matters.
But let's start off with some situational starters here. Guys that you're not going to start every week, but have a good matchup this week, and we think that could put up some big fantasy points. And let's start with yours. Who is your situational start this week, Jim?
I'm going to go with Eddie Royal, mostly because I think Alshon Jeffrey's probably not going to play. But I also think Eddie Royal's going to have a big year. He played well with Jay Cutler when he was in Denver. I think he had the most productive years of his career there. And he's going up against Green Bay in week 1. It's going to be a shootout. The Bears' defense is terrible, so they're going to have to put up points. Cutler's going to have to throw it to somebody. We know he's going to throw it to the Green Bay Packers a lot. But if he actually connects with a guy on the Bears team, it's probably going to be Eddie Royal. And going into the preseason, Eddie Royal was a sleeper for me. Maybe not somebody who's going to be your number one guy, but a number one flex guy possibly.
Yeah, we'll have to see with Alshon Jeffrey. He's questionable right now. We'll probably find out within the next day or two if he's going to play. But even if he doesn't play, Eddie Royal is going to be the number 2 guy out there for Jay Cutler, unless you want to consider Martellus Bennett. But, like you said, they're going up against Green Bay. It's a home game. Green Bay's going to score a lot of points. I expect the Chicago Bears to be passing in the second half of this game, playing from behind. And Eddie Royal, Jay Cutler, that connection
Royal's a
we
good
have
deep
seen.
Ball guy, too. There's bonus points in those deep balls.
And he finds the end zone more often than you'd think as well. So, Eddie Royal, I do like him this week against the Green Bay Packers. I am going to go with Giovanni Bernard at Oakland.
Gio.
Yeah, running back from Cincinnati. Look, Oakland gave up the most fantasy points to running backs last season. I don't think they've gotten much better on the defensive side, really. I think Jeremy Hill is going to blow up this defense, and I think there's going to be enough playing time for Giovanni Bernard to get in there and get some rushing yardage as well. And he's the one that's going to be used more often in the passing game as well. And I don't trust Oakland against the pass either. So I see Giovanni Bernard getting a few catches and getting some rushing yardage. He could even find the end zone once or twice in his game.
You sure he knows where the end zone is?
Giovanni Bernard?
Yeah.
Please believe.
All right. Just checking.
Why? Because he's from Cincy?
Pretty much.
But yeah, Giovanni Bernard, Eddie Royal, I like both those plays this week as situational starters. Other guys you could go with, Matt Stafford.
I like Stafford. I think he could become a starter just because he had a down, not even a down year, a down fantasy year last year. He put up big numbers a couple times. And with a healthy Calvin Johnson, Golden Tate in the offense, Amir Abdullah's adding to the passing game, Joique Bell, if he can stay healthy, all these things are going to help. And Stafford could rise up out of the situational starters into an everyday starter.
I could see the same thing. And another guy I see that with is Nelson Aguilar. He goes up against Atlanta this week. They let up the 7th most points to fantasy wide receivers last season. And I like this matchup for him. And I like Sam Bradford as well as a situational starter against Atlanta this week. I see Philadelphia's offense getting it done versus Atlanta. Atlanta never really has that good of a defense. Other guys, John Brown versus New Orleans. We'll have to see.
Brown, get it.
Michael Floyd is still not ruled out for week 1, but even if he does play, John Brown should be involved in this offense. And this is a great matchup here. New Orleans gets smoked in the passing game. So I like Michael Floyd if he does play. I like John Brown definitely. And I like Larry Fitzgerald too. I would play the Arizona receivers this week.
Until Palmer's knee crumbles. Then you're done with him.
Doug Martin versus Tennessee. Tennessee was terrible against the run last season. Doug Martin is definitely a situational guy, so if you're going to use him this season, you're going to want to use him when he has a good matchup, and Week 1 is a good matchup for Doug Martin. So if you're ever going to play this guy, Week 1 is a good time to do so.
And stop calling him the muscle hamster. He hates it.
All right, let's move on to some sleepers here. Who is your top sleeper?
I'm going to go with D'Angelo Williams. 2 reasons. A, the Steelers need him to play big to have a chance to beat the Patriots. B, He's on my fantasy team, and I need him to have a big week whenever he's playing the Patriots. But he has all the tools. He's shown it in Carolina in the past. I know he's an older guy. He's not a guy who would carry a team for a whole year or anything like that. He does seem to have some fresh legs. He seems a little excited to be playing in a maybe a more stable franchise. I don't know if we're a better franchise right now than Carolina. But the Steelers' offense is a high-octane offense. Williams can catch the ball out of the backfield some, so he could do it. I mean, it's not out of the realm. The Steelers are going to have to put up 55 points to win because they're going to give up at least 50. So let's hope Williams has a big day. 200 yards rushing. Let's get it done.
Yeah, the Steelers are going to have to run the ball well to stay in this game. They can't be one-dimensional. And D'Angelo Williams still has a little bit of burst. We've seen it here in the preseason. He still looks like a pretty good running back. New England isn't the best team against the run. They're not the worst team either. They're pretty much in the middle of the league, mediocre. They have good linebackers. But, yeah, I see D'Angelo Williams having a pretty decent week here against New England. In fact, I see him having a couple good weeks here before Le'Veon Bell returns.
And I'm not saying I want the Steelers to go back to 3 yards in a cloud of dust. But when you're playing an explosive offense like New England and you have a porous defense that gives up big plays, you want to run the ball at least consistently, like you said, just to shave maybe 2 minutes off of the time of possession for New England. I'm not telling them to go to the Bettis days and try to control the ball for 40 minutes, play great defense. That ain't going to work. But if you can shave 1 or 2 possessions away from them by controlling the ball a little bit more, that would definitely help out, and that's going to be all on D'Angelo.
How about my guy here, Austin Seferian-Jenkins at tight end for Tampa Bay? He goes up against...
You love this, dude.
Yeah, I do like this guy. Well, listen, he goes up against Tennessee this week. They were pretty poor against the tight end last season. Jameis Winston, rookie quarterback, they like to use their tight ends. We know that. And really, he is one of their top 3 targets out there. They have Mike Evans, who looks like a beast. We'll have to see.
Vinny Jackson.
We'll have to see if Winston can get him the ball. Yeah, Vincent Jackson, obviously. They're both very tall receivers. Austin Seferian-Jenkins is a big guy, too. And he's still young as well. I think he's going to have a pretty decent season. And this is one of the matchups I like to play him in because, like I said, Tennessee not very good against tight ends. Not really great defensively overall, really. We'll have to see how it goes this year. But Seferian-Jenkins, I expect a decent season out of him. And I expect big things starting in week 1 here as one of the top targets for Winston.
Well, Dick LeBeau's in Tennessee now as a defensive analyst. Now, even in Dick LeBeau's heyday, when our defense was great, what happened to the defense? The tight ends would gouge us over the middle when the linebackers blitzing. So there's definitely opportunity in the style defense that Tennessee plays for a tight end to put up points. And Seferian-Jenkins, you're higher on him than I am, mostly because I really don't know a lot about him. I don't have anything bad to say about him.
Son.
You love him.
Well, he's a good receiver. He's a decent blocker, and he's a big guy. He's a big target for Winston. And outside of Evans and Jackson, I mean, like I said, Doug Martin, he's a situational play. I don't see him having a huge season or anything. It can't be just Evans and Jackson all season long. More people have to get involved in this offense.
Well, why don't you just marry him?
Some other sleepers. Brandon Coleman at Arizona. This is New Orleans wide receiver.
I like it. I like it. We need him to play big.
He's at least going to be the third option out there for Drew Brees. It's possible he could be the second option ahead of Marcus Colston. In fact, he was running as the second receiver towards the end of the preseason here. But Brandon Cooks is the number 1 guy out there. There's no doubt about that. But Brandon Coleman, he's a big guy, and Drew Brees is going to make more than one player good in this offense. And Brandon Coleman is the option I'm looking at. I mean, there's really no one behind. I don't think Colston's the same guy. He's not going to have that huge season anymore, I don't believe. So Coleman's the guy. He's going to have a big season, and I expect it to start here in week 1.
I think you stole all your sleepers from my roster because I got Coleman, Williams, and
I think
Johnson.
You just listened to my sleepers.
I don't know.
How about Kenny Stills? I don't know if you want to consider this a sleeper or not, but nobody seems to be playing him right now. He's active in less than 10% of the leagues. Not owned in less than 10% in the active rosters. Yeah, just not in the starting rosters. But he goes up against Washington this week, who is terrible in the passing game. They showed it last season. Their team is a mess right now. I think Kenny Stills could come up and have a big week here in week 1, although I'm not playing him more often than not, but I think week 1 is a good play.
Kenny Stills, Do your job. I got Miami in my Survivor League.
Michael Floyd for the Arizona Cardinals going up against New Orleans. Like I said, New Orleans, they get torched against the pass. Now, he isn't definitely playing in week 1. You're going to have to wait and see. But if he plays, man, I like Michael Floyd. I already said I like him better than Larry Fitzgerald in this offense this season. I like Larry Fitzgerald better as a football player in his career, obviously. But Michael Floyd, man, he has huge upside. And if he is healthy enough to play, I think he can still put up big stats with John Brown and Larry Fitzgerald this week.
Till Floyd can run down the field, do a backflip, and catch a touchdown pass. He's got nothing on Larry.
How about David Johnson for the Arizona Cardinals?
Putting up big numbers. Another sleeper.
This isn't a guy I really like, and I could see him overtaking Andre Ellington as the starting running back as the season goes along. To start the season, though, it's going to be Ellington mostly. But, again, New Orleans' defense is not very good, and they're probably going to be worse this season, actually. And they were terrible against the pass, like I said, but they were also terrible against the run. David Johnson is going to get some playing time in his game. In a deep league, I wouldn't mind playing this guy in a flex position if you have someone out. If you drafted Arian Foster earlier and David Johnson's your 5th running back or something. I think Johnson could have a decent week here in week 1, even though he is a rookie.
He needs to put up points, son, because I think McCoy and Bell are going to be out. We know Bell for sure, but I need running backs. It's going to be Woodhead and Johnson for me in week 1.
Please believe, I like Woodhead too. How about some deep sleepers? Who is your deep sleeper this week?
Deep. A guy a lot of people don't even know is still in the league. James Jones just re-signed with the Packers. Packers are going to put up a lot of points against the Bears. We already talked about it when we talked about Eddie Royal. Bears defense is garbage. This game's going to be a shootout even though it's in Chicago. James Jones played well. I think he had 14 touchdowns one year with the Packers.
Yes.
He was a 3rd-round pick for these guys. He washed out in Oakland and somewhere else. Where was the other place he signed? I forget.
He was just in Houston a little while ago.
Yeah, it was Oakland and Houston, I'm pretty sure. For some reason, they don't like this dude, but he fits exactly what Aaron Rodgers wants. Rodgers moves around a little bit. Jones finds a seam and gets downfield. And with Jordy Nelson out, who was their big play guy, Randall Cobb will be getting the big plays, but Cobb's going to work the middle a little bit too, and Jones is a guy who can get deep down the field.
Yeah, Jordy Nelson hurt. That moves Randall Cobb up the depth chart. That moves Devontae Adams up the depth chart. They had that Ty Montgomery and Jeff Janis, who they were thinking about putting in the 3rd wide receiver spot to start the season. But they already said James Jones is going to be the 3rd receiver to start the season already. So he has a chance to put up big plays in his game. And really, there's a possibility he could overtake Devontae Adams too and become the number 2 receiver eventually. But we'll have to see. But James Jones, in a deep league, I definitely like that play in that high-powered offense.
A really good flex 1 or 2, and possibly a good wide receiver 3 if you play 3 wide receivers.
My deep sleeper, I'm going to go with Harry Douglas for Tampa Bay. I know you love this guy. But look, Tampa Bay, they were terrible against the pass last season, led up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers. This is a risky pick, obviously, because you don't know what Mariota is going to do, but who knows? Harry Douglas could end up being the number 1 receiver out there until Dorial Green-Beckham is ready to slot into that role. Because, I mean, they have Kendall Wright on the other side. I do like him as a big play guy, but he's not a guy you want to target a ton. Maybe Harry Douglas is the guy that he targets more often than not. But, of course, they got that tight end situation going out there, too, with Delaney Walker. But Harry Douglas, I mean, there's a chance that he could be better than people are believing him to be this season. You've seen big games out of him in Atlanta. So it's possible Mariota finds a connection with Harry Douglas and it lasts throughout the season. And this is a good time to start against a very bad defense to try to get him involved because he is going to be the number 2 starter to start the season.
Well, last I heard, Tennessee had 4 wide receivers on their roster, so that gives Douglas a 25% chance to be the best wide receiver on the team. Those are pretty good odds, if you ask me, for a guy who has shown good big play potential with an explosive quarterback. Mariota could be explosive. We've seen Vince Young. I mean, he came into Tennessee, played great for almost 3 years, and then completely washed out. So there's nothing to say that Mariota can't have early success before teams really know what style player he is. And somebody's got to catch the football. They're going to run a very unorthodox offense, it seems like, with Ken Wisenhunt at the helm, at coach. And I don't know. I mean, It's a deep sleeper, folks. It's not like we're
Please
saying
believe.
he's a must start.
Some other deep sleepers. How about Jameis Winston versus Tennessee? Tennessee wasn't very good against fantasy quarterbacks last season. Who knows? Maybe the same thing you're saying about Mariota here applies to Winston. And I think Winston is a better passing quarterback than Mariota as well. So Winston could show some success early as well.
He's just been a little bit more inconsistent than Mariota has in the preseason. That's all.
How about Andy Dalton at Oakland?
Nope.
Listen, deep sleeper, man. Oakland.
His
Andy
hair's
Dalton
red.
had some
Nope.
big games. I mean, he's a very inconsistent quarterback. He has terrible games and he has big games. If he's going to have any big games this season, I'm going to say it's going to be against Oakland's defense for
Maybe.
sure. They were very bad against fantasy quarterbacks last season. Andy Dalton here early in the season, I think he's going to be on his game. A.J. Green's healthy. Giovanni Bernard's healthy, which wasn't the case all season last year. Jeremy Hill, I mean, all their guys are healthy. He has weapons around him. I think Dalton could put up a big game.
Nope. That's all I got to say about that.
Ladarius Green, tight end for San Diego.
I'll give you him, maybe.
Going up against Detroit. I think, actually, until Antonio Gates returns, Ladarius Green isn't a bad option to play in fantasy. This guy has very good upside in the passing game. He is a very good receiver. And even when Gates comes back, I expect them to be transitioning to Green at some point. He should still get playing time when Gates returns. Really, I like him for the first 4 weeks of the season.
And you know that Phillip Rivers has come accustomed to throwing to the tight end, so he's going to be looking his way. It's not like he never throws it. He's really grown close to Gates, and they use Gates. They use the tight end a lot in that offense, and they're going to use him even more, honestly, I think. So, yeah, Ladarius Green, he could end up climbing up to our situational starter soon.
Yeah.
Climb that ladder, young blood.
Listen, man, if Ladarius Green played for a different team and was the starter, he could be a top 12 tight end, I believe. And put him in Denver. Could you imagine him in Denver? He'd be a top 5 tight
Daniels
end.
just because he's in Denver, so I definitely would take Ladarius Green.
But yeah, a lot of people drafted him at the end of the draft. A lot of people didn't. But if you're looking for a tight end this week in a deep league, go see if Ladarius Green is out there, because he is available in a lot of leagues still.
Believe it. Is he available in ours? Because I'll take him.
I think Johnny Parlay actually took him.
He cheats. Was that it, Dash? Is that all the fantasy talk we got for week 1?
Yeah, everybody, if you have any questions up until Sunday or whatever, I guess before Thursday, if you have any Steelers or New England questions, but put them on YouTube or send them to Jim at what is it?
Yeah, you can hit us up on Twitter for the show at bet_the_spread. You can hit me up personally on Twitter at betjimthewin. I know more about fantasy football than baseball, so we're getting into things that I can actually talk about on Twitter here. You can hit us up on our Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread, or like Dash said, just comment on the section underneath YouTube at youtube.com/betthespread. I mean, you just type in bet_the_spread,
Yeah, in
stuff
case
pops
you're
up.
listening to us on some other site that people jacked our videos
Yeah.
and posted them.
And then freaking they gain all the notoriety. This is our hard work, fools. Well, that's it. Good luck week 1 with your fantasy teams. Unless you're in my league, then I hope you lose.